Short division. It's really important that you know your times tables really well, and you'll be able to solve these short division questions a lot easier if you can solve simple division questions in your head. We know that dividing means sharing or grouping. We now need to have a method with larger numbers which are higher than the 12 times table and are divisions that we can't do in our head. Let's look at the division 84 divided by 6. We set out the division in what I like to think of as a bus stop. And the larger number goes inside the bus stop, in this case it's 84, and the smaller number goes outside the bus stop, 6. As in all written calculations, it's important that we line up our tens and our units. So we look at our bus stop and we think to ourselves, how many times does the number 6 divide into 84? Now, obviously that's quite difficult, we can't do that in our heads, so instead we think to ourselves, okay, how many times does 6 go into the first digit in our division, the 8? How many times does the 6 go into the 8? We know that 6 goes into 8 once, and so we write that 1 above the tens number on the bus stop. Now, we know that 6 goes into 8 once, because 1 times 6 is 6, but there's 2 left over. So we write that 2 by carrying it to the next digit along, which in this case is the unit. So we carry the 2 to here. By carrying that 2, we've now created the number 24. So the next stage of my calculation is to think to myself, how many times does 6 go into 24? I know that 6 goes into 24 4 times, so I'm going to write that above, lining it up with the column I've just been using. Now, there's no more digits here, there's just a space here, there's nothing more to do, so I know that I've finished the calculation, and I can see that 84 divided by 6 is 14. Let's look at another example. This time I'm going to calculate 96 divided by 4. So as before, I'm going to draw my bus stop and I'm going to write the largest number, the 96, in the bus stop, making sure I have a column for tens and a column for units, and the 4 is going to go outside my bus stop. So first of all, I'm going to look at the 4, which is outside, and say, how many times does the 4 divide into 9, my first digit? Now, I know that 4 goes into 9 twice, so I write that above, making sure that the columns are lined up. Now, I can check that because I can look at it and think, well, 4 times 2 is 8, so I know it does go into 9. Now, because 4 times 2 is 8, that means that I have 1 left over, so I'm going to carry that 1 to the next column. I've now created the number 16. Now I'm going to think to myself, how many times does 4 go into 16? Now, I know that 4 goes into 16 4 times. And then I'm going to see, is there anything else for me to divide my 4 into? No, there's nothing else there, so my question is finished. And I know that 96 divided by 4 is 24. Let's try another example. Okay, this time 112 divided by 7. Draw my bus stop. The largest number goes inside the bus stop, and you can see I've written hundreds, tens and units to make sure I'm lining all my columns up correctly, and the 7 goes outside of the bus stop. So the first thing I'm going to do, like I did before, is look at the 7 and think, how many times does it go into the first digit, which in this case is 1. So how many times does 7 go into 1? Or another way of saying that, if I had 1, how could I share that between 7 people? Well, that would be pretty difficult, wouldn't it? Because 7 doesn't go into 1. So there's nothing I can do here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a little dash there so I know that 7 doesn't go into 1. Now, what I need to remember is that because 7 didn't go into 1, I need to carry this 1. This one here that I haven't yet used, I need to carry it. And I'm going to carry it to the digit next to it. And what I've done now is I've created 11. So now I'm going to say, okay, how many times does 7 go into 11? I know that 7 goes into 11 once, I'm going to write that above. Are there any left over? Well, 7 times 1 is 7, so yes, there's 4 left over, so I'm going to carry that 4 to the next column. And then I'm going to see, okay, I've got my 7, how many times does that go into 42? Well, 7 goes into 42 6 times, so let's write that there. Any more to do? No, no more digits for me to work with, so I know that 112 divided by 7 is 16. Now it's your turn to try a question. So you're going to calculate 152 divided by 8. So you can pause the video, on a piece of paper draw your bus stop, work out the division, and then let's check whether you've got the answer correct. Okay, how did you do? Hopefully you got the answer 19 and that your workings out looked a little like this. Okay, let's move on to another one. Okay, here are 3 more questions for you to practice, so you can pause the video, jot down your workings out using the bus stop method, and then we'll see how you did. Let's look at the answers. 126 divided by 9 is 14. 192 divided by 8 is 24. And 252 divided by 7 is 36. If you feel confident using short division, why don't you have a look at our video that looks at word problems with short division to give yourself a bit more practice?